what people don't understand that the moment that Jesus, surrenders and finally relinquishes the spirit totally. So in the Garden of Gethsemane, he starts to relinquish the power, but he doesn't totally relinquish the spirit, his own spirit, until that final moments on the cross when he says it's finished. So the chain reaction that begins to happen then is what a lot of people don't know is simultaneously uh, Caesar is finds out what's going on back in Rome, right? That this is taking place. Caesar's so pissed off that he stamps to remove Pilate from Judea. Now it takes a while for that to happen, but it's interesting that this is all happening synchronicity, that all these things are overlining. And you're right, there was a lot of people that were outside of the trial when he was before Pilate that were choosing Barnabas, the thief, and the zealot that had killed many people over the Christ in the choice. A lot of those people got caught up in the quake itself. Now, that quake was all the way from the skull all the way back to the temple. So this was a split that was several football fields long, if people can imagine. And people were climbing out, being resurrected as other people are falling in. So it was chaos to you can't even imagine how the chaos was. But the real powerful thing now, Jimmy, that happens is we're early Easter morning, right? So we can move into early Easter morning, and lo and behold, who shows up but two of the most faithful women? You got Mary Magdalene shows up, who a lot of people don't know was a second or third cousin to Jesus's family. So she was known. And because she herself was a seer, right? And she herself, like Mother Mary, had a connection to the Essenes, the outside people, the deep state of the time, tried to spin her as a prostitute to, discredit her, which she absolutely wasn't. They just didn't like her having this ability to see, and that she was a woman on top of that. If you understand the way they viewed that at the time, it was a big deal. So of course, so Jesus says, why would you look for the living among the dead? And they look to him and they realize, and they yell out, Master, Master. And they go to embrace him, and he turns to them. He says, don't grab me yet, because I haven't fully ascended to the Father. And so, of course, they rush back to the upper room. Now, the upper room is where the Lama series says, pay attention, because this is where Jesus's big advanced teachings kick in. So so they're talking to the apostles. There's over 30 people in the room, and there's equally, again, women to man. There's disciples, there's apostles in the room. There's also Stephen, who's going to play an important part in the next 2 to 4 weeks. There's John the Beloved, that was on the journeys that Jesus took. And of course, there's Matthew, and there's Simon Peter. Well, initially, no one wants to believe Mary and Mary when they show up. And because a lot of them are still souling over the fact of the crucifixion. And they say, he's risen, he's risen. And John, being who he is and had so much time with you, he jumps up and radiates that, I knew it, I knew it, I knew it. And that positive spirit spreads to everybody. Now, the moment that spirit encompasses everybody in the room, it raises the vibration of the room itself. And when, lo and behold, Jesus literally floats through the room. Now, the interesting thing is, Jesus is in a new golden body. It's not totally spirit, but it's not totally physical. It's a blend of a spiritually physical body that had the ability to come right through a stone wall. And that what I'm going to share with you in the next couple of minutes is incredibly significant. It's not being taught in the church. So Jesus goes right up, and Matthew had just got through saying, and it's not Matthew, Thomas just got through saying, I still cannot believe it. So, of course, Jesus has Matthew examine the wounds that are still there. Now, interesting, the wounds are there, but they're glowing with light. They're not. They're there for show more than they are for anything else. He touches the wound. Thomas is okay. So they sit around and they begin to eat. Now, this is important because the Last Supper, I want people to think back. The Last Supper, they're only having the appetizer, the hors d'oeuvres. They're having the wine and they're having the bread, the pita bread, right? That's what they're eating. Now they're sitting down 3 days later, like it's a celebration, like somebody got married, right? And they're sitting around, and now there's fish and bread and water and wine, an entree. Think about it. This is so they're using the food here to say, hey, 3 days ago, before I was killed, tried, beaten, and crucified, we had the entree that led up to the transition to have the full meal and signified that Jesus was all the way on the other side of second birth in the Kundalini experience, that he was now showing what a human being could become because of this demonstration. And by the way, after this, he ascends and goes right up through the ceiling. Again, a solid piece of matter, and he takes off and goes. So he's got every one of the powers that Keanu Reeves demonstrates in The Matrix and some. And he's got a body that's untouchable, that's not limited to by natural law, that he can do anything he wants to. And what is significant is about every night he appears to 3 or more of the apostles and disciples to continue talking about second birth, which is not in the Bible that people have. And he's giving them discourse, but during the day, he's being seen everywhere as if he's got more than one body, Jimmy, as if the abundance he talked about is no longer that it's bread and fish coming out of baskets like popcorns. It's as if he's cloning himself and he's showing up in multiple bodies, because how else could it be possible? Because during those 40 days, he's seen by hundreds of people. Here's the important thing, too. Right before he leaves dinner in the upper room, this happens 24 to 36 hours after the resurrection. This is what he does. He says a prayer and a blessing and asks for the outpouring of the Holy Spirit. Now, why is this so significant? If you do a little study of Old Testament, and if you read some of the old religious books of the Far East, in Buddhism, but especially in Hinduism, you'll notice that the Shakti pot, the transference of energy from a master to a student, was done 101 forever. Forever it was done 101. Now we're having a demonstration of a being that is Shakti pot 30 plus people, and they get anointed by the Holy Spirit. This is the beginning of the Great Awakening, according to the Lamasery. This and after that, this gets back to the Lamasery. The Lamasery gets together and says, we've got to change, because this was so incredible. We have to check. At that time, the Lamasery was only teaching one or two people at a time. And then the Lamasery made a decision that we were going to teach more so that we could ignite the energy and put people into second birth sooner. And lo and behold, and now we've evolved into the internet where we have the chance to reach millions.